In biblical times, Israel was sometimes called the land of the gazelle. The mountain gazelle symbolized love, liberty, grace. It became the emblem of the Jewish people. When Israelis came once more to live and farm on the Golan Heights, they reintroduced mountain gazelles, which had been wiped out by hunting a century or more earlier. Once more, gazelles danced on the high places, danced and multiplied, until today Israel has a problem which no one had foreseen, a national emblem which has become a pest. In the ruins of the palace built by the Sultan Hisham near Jericho, a mosaic floor from the 8th century depicts the gazelle of Israel falling prey to the Arab lion, as indeed it had a century earlier. Now the gazelle is back, with a vengeance. The artist knew very well the gazelle's feeding habits. Gazelles breed all the year round, with a main peak in the autumn, but spring is a time of considerable activity. A territorial male will mate with as many females as he can defend from other males, sometimes as many as 50. The fights are ritualized, but the stakes are very high. The contest will be decided by a combination of weight and strength. A few brief horn-to-horn contacts are usually enough to let each contestant know where he stands. Although he is sexually mature at 1 year old, a male cannot breed until he is strong enough to win and hold a territory, which may not be until he is 3 years old. Horning plants and urinating are ways of marking the boundary. Any male which drops out of the competition for any reason, whether it's old age, injury, or death, will be replaced immediately. The best place to defend is a wide open space with plenty of food, where the females gather in the largest groups, and a male can see a rival coming from far away. A female can mate at the age of about 7 months, and again about 10 days after she has given birth. In good conditions, she can produce nearly 2 fawns every year, certainly 3 in 2 years. From 400 animals introduced in 1970, the gazelle population in the southern Golan Heights is now rising past 4,500. 3,000 of them are females. One thing against which even the strongest male has no defense is the bulldozer. As more and more of the Golan is taken over for agriculture, the gazelles can only keep out of the way and watch their food supply being pushed aside. But the bulldozer produces wide open fields with all the rocky hillocks leveled. A male gazelle can control a huge territory in such a perfect breeding arena. Corn, tomatoes, and grazing for cattle form a nutritious diet. On the lower slopes, groves of fruit trees offer an appetizing supplement. The farmers' improvements have improved the lot of the gazelles. Another improvement for the gazelles arises from the farmers' concern for their stock. The Golan Heights have a varied population of predators, including jackals, which the farmers accuse of killing calves. It's equally likely that the jackals are scavenging stock which died of natural causes. But to pacify the farmers, rangers from the Nature Reserves Authority hunt jackals at night, when they're most active. In fact, jackals may be the principal predators on gazelles. By shooting them, the authority is protecting or even boosting the gazelle population. The ranger's nightly patrols reveal that the Golan Heights, part of which is a nature reserve, has recovered very well from the devastation of overhunting by its former inhabitants, and from the war which displaced them. Wild boar are very common, even though they are enthusiastically hunted by both Arabs and Israelis. Porcupines are regularly seen at night, though they spend the day in hiding. Wildcats are scarce over most of Israel, but quite common here. The fox is the same species as is found in Europe, but here it is regarded neither as a pest nor as a noble quarry species. It is principally a scavenger, tidying up the carcasses of gazelles and other animals which die of natural causes. The fox is no match for the hyena, an altogether heavier class of scavenger. As the foxes disconsolately watch their dinner being removed, they might at least be thankful that they're not tarred with the same brush as the jackals. The slaughter of the jackals protects the gazelle at the most vulnerable point in its life cycle, the first month. The mother goes off alone to give birth so that her fawn will be hidden from view. Feral dogs are another threat which she must guard against. When it's born, the fawn is helpless, its only defense the ability to hide, and to lie perfectly still until its mother comes to suckle it. It keeps alert for danger, but only so that it will not be startled into sudden movement. Lying still in the grass, it becomes invisible. A family of woodchat shrikes benefits from the abundant insect life of high summer. For the first 3 or 4 weeks of its life, the fawn stays within an area about 30 meters across, waiting patiently to be fed and groomed by its mother. The extraordinary thing is that 65% of the fawns survive to the end of their first year. If there were more predators about, that figure would be much lower. When the fawn is about a month old, it will follow its mother everywhere she goes. She will defend a small, movable feeding territory for the two of them, wandering far and wide in search of the best places. For the time being, though, the fawn stays put. At this time of year, the bachelor males are separated from the rest in their own herd. The breeding males defend their territories, mating with any females which come into season as they pass through. Within 10 or 15 days of giving birth, the mother will be pregnant again. Until she dies at 8 years old, barring accidents, she will produce a steady stream of fawns every 7 or 8 months, producing milk to feed them from her rich diet of corn shoots and selected grasses in the pastures so conveniently planted for her by the long-suffering farmers. farmers have tried driving the gazelles away, even shooting some, which is illegal since the gazelle is a protected species. They keep on coming back. Fencing is one answer, but it's very expensive to set up, beyond the reach of most farmers. For those who can afford to put up fences, they make quite a difference, evidently offering just enough of an inconvenience to persuade the gazelles to feed elsewhere. The results can be seen when the crop ripens. By now it's late summer, the driest part of the year, a hard time even for these hardy animals. There's food to be had, but not of the same quality as they've been getting. At this time of year, the gazelles feed mainly on dry stems, and especially seeds, together with the fruits and leaves of spiny shrubs. Where they can reach them, they browse from trees. You can tell gazelle country at a glance. Like those in English parks, its trees have a clear browse line just above the animal's head height. Even during this dry season, the mothers produce plenty of milk to suckle their fawns. The shrikes have a new range of insect prey. Ant lions have emerged from their predatory larval form for a short life on the wing. They're a tricky mouthful for a young shrike, all wings with a tiny piece of meat attached. Among the seeds of summer is one variety which does the gazelles no good. They're colored by immersion in a seed dressing which poisons mice which dig them up. Gazelles are colorblind, and they don't find the seeds by digging them up. They are put in danger by a conspiracy of ants. The ants collect seeds during the dry season for food. They drag, heave, and maneuver them to the entrance to their nest, and thence underground. Gazelles have exploited these opportune collections of seeds for thousands of years, as a food supply which appears just when they need it most. Unfortunately, it is now a death trap rather than a lifeline. But the food chain must go on, and above there are always the vultures. Scavengers of all kinds come into their own in the dry season, when the mountain burns every year. The fires are man-made to improve the grazing, but the result is to produce a heavy stress on all the wild animals, as their food supply, such as it was, goes up in smoke. The aftermath of the fire is a desolate landscape with plenty of food for scavengers, but little to offer a grazing animal. A few scorched seeds are all the gazelles can find. A Syrian woodpecker, however, can feed its chick with its first cooked meal. For the gazelles, the time has come to look for another source of food. They leave the burned-out hillsides to move lower down, where mankind, as has become its habit in recent years, supplies their need. They move quietly by night among the haunts of man, helped by a group of wild boars, which conveniently lift the fence which the fruit grower thought would be his insurance. Grapefruit saplings and young citrus trees of all kinds are exactly to the gazelle's taste. When he has eaten, a young buck leaves his card. Driven from the mountain by fire and famine, and by the ever-increasing pressure of their own population, the gazelles are an irresistible force which the fruit growers have come to resent. No sooner are their trees planted than they are wrecked and have to be replaced. The fruit growers and farmers joined forces to appeal to the Nature Reserve's authority to do something before they took the law into their own hands. They made it clear that they would not suffer this continued threat to their livelihood from any animal, no matter how protected or emblematic. The authorities set up a research program which lasted for 4 years, studying ways of attacking the problem. While they waited, the fruit growers tried everything and anything to protect themselves. A well-known brand of soap has been said to deter gazelles from molesting mangoes. The farmers tried it. Some said it worked, but nobody could say why. The soap manufacturers saw their sales rise, but said nothing. Finally, with all the evidence in, the authority decided that for 2 experimental years they would wage war on the gazelles to cut down their population to a manageable size. They sold licenses to local hunters and set a quota of 2,000 animals for the first year to be killed between November and March in selected areas on 1 hunting day each week. Unlike most Israelis, Arabs have a long tradition of hunting. The response was enthusiastic. Gazelle meat is worth nearly 4 times as much as beef, so the hunters were keen to get what they could. The first permits were for 1 male and 2 females for each hunter. But most of the hunters shoot on sight without much regard for the gender of their quarry. Also, males have more impressive horns, which look good on the front of the Jeep on the way home, even if they are tougher than females. The result of the hunts was that males and females were killed in roughly equal numbers. By tradition, animals for eating are put to death with a knife, so the hunters do not shoot to kill, but to immobilize. Gazelle hunting is a bloody business. Fences are expensive and ineffectual. Hunting is only marginally effective in controlling the gazelle's numbers. Yet the mayhem of 16 hunting days each spring keeps the farmers from destroying every gazelle in sight. The predators could do more to control the population, but if they return in sufficient numbers, they will be accused of taking the farmer's stock, not gazelles. The more land the farmers cultivate, the happier and more fruitful the gazelles will be. To the people of the cities, the gazelle may be an emblem of all their country stands for. But to the farmers and the conservationists, it's a problem as thorny as any that ever tested the wisdom of Solomon.
Upon Mount Sinai, according to the Old Testament, Moses received the 10 Commandments of God, laws to guide a people to righteousness. But the wildlife of Sinai has its own code, the law of survival. Here, 2 very different habitats exist side by side. One defined by its abundance of water, the other by its absence. Neither is hospitable to humans, yet in both, evolution's rich bounty is manifest. Where Africa and the Middle East have begun to drift apart lies the Sinai Peninsula. There, rocky mountains slope steeply to the bottom of the Red Sea. Far more ancient than the Bible, these boulders have witnessed the separation of the great land masses, the age of dinosaurs, and the dawn of man. And from their unforgiving bosom springs the first link in the desert's chain of life. Colonizing these rocks is a job for only the hardiest plants. Searching for every last drop of water, woundwort sends its roots deep into the crevices. Its fine hairs shade it from the sun's glare. From such meager provisions, the animals of the desert carve out a niche. With the demeanor of a rabbit, the rock hyrax seems out of place in this harsh world, but it's well adapted to life on the rocks. The elastic soles of its feet are coated with a sweat-like secretion that helps them grip the slippery mountain surfaces. Remarkably, both the hyrax and the elephant share a common ancestor that lived 55 million years ago. Like its much larger relative, the hyrax has a pair of long tusk-like incisors. Primarily a vegetarian, it relishes fresh grass and herbs. Herds of up to 80 animals roam a single territory. Though they graze alone through much of the day, they stay in noisy, sociable contact. Through this lively vocal network, they keep tabs on each other's whereabouts and warn of possible enemies. Each family group is guarded by a vigilant adult male. On these same steep slopes, dwells another desert icon. The Nubian Ibex was revered by Egyptian royalty, and a statue of one probably greeted Moses when he entered the pharaoh's palace. A champion rock climber, the Ibex can escape to dizzying heights. As many as a dozen short-horned females band together to rear their young. Male kids are tolerated until they reach sexual maturity around 3 years of age. Molded by the arid clime, the ibex has become a model conservationist. Unlike cattle or sheep, ibexes don't overgraze the vulnerable desert vegetation. Since they live far from the nearest water hole, they make do with the limited moisture found in the plants themselves. Old females are the eyes and ears of the community, ever on the lookout for trespassers. By late summer, the males have more pressing matters on their minds. Mating season approaches, and they vie fiercely to see who will sire the next generation. Their chief measure of virility, their horns. Growing continuously throughout a male's life, horns can reach over 1 meter in length and weigh as much as 10 kilos. Head-butting matches like these determine who gets top mating rights. Like their cousins, the bighorn sheep, the ibexes often bash each other for 1/4 of an hour before the loser finally backs down. Injuries are seldom more serious than a broken horn. But such an injury essentially destroys the animal's chances for breeding. All hostilities cease when a female and her kid pass by. Like a group of teenagers ogling at a pretty girl, the males line up to show off their physiques. They literally taste the air to see if she's in heat. But it's too early. She won't be receptive to their advances until late autumn, when it's time to mate. Below this passion play, at the mountain's feet, the landscape becomes increasingly bizarre. 150 million years ago, these valleys were filled with water. Ancient sediments left a layer of sandstone. Now naked to the elements, that ancient link with the sea is bared. Myriad fossils distort the rock faces. Fortunately for the Hebrews, Moses had a radical solution when the Pharaoh chased them to the desert's edge. The prophet held up his staff and parted the sea. The Red Sea is unlike any other body of water on Earth. It is named after the mineral-rich mountain ranges on the coast, which inspired ancient mariners to call it Mare Nostrum. Like a long, bony finger, it rests between its neighbors, the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. Still, contact among the three has always been limited, and as much as 10% of the fish species found in the Red Sea are unique. The secret of these waters lies in one of the world's most diverse communities of coral. The hardest of these tiny prolific creatures form reefs, the playground for schools of fish. The sheer number of fish will likely confuse a passing predator, allowing the school to safely harvest the reef's bounty. Nearby grow soft corals, a vast garden of plant-like animals. Sweeping their far-reaching tentacles through the water, the corals fish for plankton. Their cousins, the sea anemones, are also curiously rooted beasts. Despite a poisonous greeting, the anemone has a constant visitor. The clownfish is immune to the anemone's poison. Instead of a deadly dose, the fish gets shelter from predators. A lyre-tailed grouper eyes the clownfish hungrily, but doesn't dare pluck its prey from the anemone's arms. The reef corals aren't just a good place to hide. The parrotfish feeds on the soft algae growing there. Apparently, it also craves a little roughage in its diet. With its strong beak, the parrotfish chips off and swallows bits of dead coral to help its digestion, in much the same way a bird will eat stones. Little fish are eaten by big fish. It's the law of the sea. And where there are little fish, there will be bigger ones. In this case, sharks. Unfazed, the triggerfish protectively guards its shallow nest in the sand. Any opportunist that comes near hoping for a tasty egg is abruptly driven off. With pectoral fins, it gently fans fresh water to the clutch. As evening falls, the crystalline waters turn a deep blue. The hawksbill turtle stops looking for food and instead seeks a place to rest. Renowned for the tortoiseshell plates on its back, the hawksbill is an ocean drifter. It breeds off East Africa and spends its entire life at sea. Night brings out some of the most dangerous predators. Even while sleeping, fish must defend themselves. This parrotfish hunkers down in a camouflage gown. During the day, its scales are dull gray, but at night, its spots come out to conceal it among the corals. Another parrotfish wraps itself in a kind of sleeping bag. Every evening it produces a mucus cocoon, which masks its scent and throws off hunters. To confuse its enemies, an octopus can quickly switch the color of its skin and blend with the surroundings. It can even change texture and pose as a coarse and bumpy rock on the bottom of the sea. As Moses passed through the Red Sea, he was heading into an unseen future. And if he looked back to the retreating shore, the prophet may have hoped his people would prove as hardy as the creatures of the Sinai. This is the realm of the desert fox. It has evolved to meet desert challenges. Long ears help dissipate the punishing heat. The soles of its feet are completely covered in fur, protecting them from the burning sands. The light color of its coat deflects the sun's rays by day, while its thickness provides warmth when evening falls. In the late afternoon, the fox scours the landscape for dinner. And while insects make up the bulk of its diet, it'll catch larger prey if it can. A sand rat would be a real prize. A true desert denizen, the rat gets most of the moisture it needs from seeds and may go its whole life without a single drop of water. If you live in a sandbox, digging is a good skill to cultivate. And no one does it better than the fox. It can tunnel up to 6 meters in one night. Still, the rat is a pretty good digger in its own right, and an accomplished escape artist. It can jump 3 meters, 45 times its body length. At dawn, most of the desert animals retreat into whatever holes or forgiving shade they can find. But a few creatures linger a while to soak up some sun. To intimidate the Pharaoh, Moses turned his staff into a serpent, and certainly there's no animal more feared in the Bible. Neither is there one better adapted to the scarcities of the desert. An extraordinary moisture miser, the horned adder excretes a white, semi-solid powder instead of urine. Compared to the rainforest adder, it conserves 100 times more water. Like all reptiles, it doesn't use food to produce body heat. In fact, the adder only requires 2% of the food needed by a similarly sized mammal. When it is time to eat, it often turns its attention to other reptiles, such as the Egyptian spiny-tailed lizard. But this lizard wields a formidable weapon, a spiny tail that keeps most enemies at bay. Its gentle neighbor, the agama, is a sun worshipper. Like all cold-blooded creatures, she depends on the sun to regulate her body temperature. The vivid coloring of her mate heralds the breeding season. He defends this territory and several females. He has nothing to fear from the spiny-tailed lizard, who's not interested in his females or his food. While the one lizard eats insects, the other prefers greenery. Though it primarily consumes shrubs, the camel isn't a picky eater. Its thick lips allow it to attack even the thorniest desert plant. But because it only takes a few leaves from any given bush, it puts little stress on the fragile vegetation. Around the age of 4, females begin to bear young. After a 15-month gestation, the mother will care for its calf for up to 2 years. Broad and spongy, their feet keep their half-ton bulk on top of the sand. Long eyelashes and a slit nose help them cope with the Sinai's brutal sandstorms. Domesticated since biblical times, camels are periodically set free into the desert to regain their strength. It's said that within a month, a camel can rebound from even the most strenuous expedition. A month in the desert for most humans would be a death penalty. So it is that Sinai was a terrifying wilderness to Moses and the Hebrews. But hidden among the dunes and under the waves is a world as wonder-filled as any rainforest. Moses himself must have learned from the desert's strict code, that of survival. Over the eons, it has made Sinai a land of miracles.